Okay, we're on episode 3. We're going to show you guys how to import footage into Premiere, a variety of different ways and some things you need to know if you're going to be importing. First of all, I'm going to talk about if you have some camera footage that you've been handed on a card and you're going to be transferring the media off. One of the best ways to go, this is like the same for pretty much all cameras, that you use. Sometimes you'll open up the folder of here is the flash drive with the thumb, or the flash drive with the footage on it that was handed to me from a camera, and here are some folders inside. Some of these have a lot of information that you don't really need. What kind of a mistake that some people make is they'll go in and just grab the movie files. If you're working on DSLR, that's not such a bad deal to do that. But sometimes some of these folders will contain, depending on what the camera operator uses, will make metadata that goes inside of these folders that keep settings like ISO, focal length, type of lens that they're using, a whole bunch of different metadata items that will be in here. It's just a good habit to get in to just grab the whole thing. Here's the card. I'm just going to grab everything in there, copy that, hit Command C, and I'm going to go into my folder up here. I'm putting media. I'm going to make a new folder and call this DSLR. If you're doing several DSLR cards, it's good to label them, sometimes by date, sometimes by card number, depending on the size, on the scale of the production. And I'm just going to paste that whole card in there. So this folder now equals basically this entire card right there. Once that's done there, now we're going to show you how to import. But like I said, whether you're working with RED camera, DSLR cameras, anything, it's just always a good habit to get into, to grab the entire contents of the folder and drag and drop it and copy it onto your project file, onto your hard drive. Especially RED camera, if you start going in and grabbing individual clips, it's really going to screw things up. So you need to just grab the whole card, copy it in, and leave the whole file structure alone. And Premiere will kind of do the rest here. So if we go into Premiere, a couple different ways of importing. I'm going to go over my project window and hit tilde, so I go full screen. Is just double clicking in this area here. If you double click in this area, it's going to open up an import window. What I'm going to show you is the difference between importing through this window here or importing through what they call the media browser. This is kind of an alternate method to browse for files. And this is really important to, really kind of the major difference I found is this works, just basic import options work okay with DSLR and some other cameras. The media browser works really well with the more complex folder structures like RED, where it has several files inside of one folder that represent actually just one clip. Because RED uses some sort of almost similar to a FAT32 format on their flash drives, so it only reads up to 4 gig increments, and therefore it'll put, if you have a file that goes over 4 gig, it will make 3 or 4 files depending on how long your clip is, and that all 4 of those clips will represent one clip, but it reads seamlessly in Premiere. And that's if you import it through the media browser. If you import it through this area here, the RED footage in here, you're going to get duplicate files and it looks all weird and it's kind of difficult to understand that. So RED footage through media browser, DSLR, and you can do any media through the media browser, but if you're just going to use the quick import options in the project window, DSLR and other cameras are fine, but more complex folder structures like RED and a few other cameras, it's just good to use the media browser. I'm going to show you that now. So let's import some media here. You just double click in here. It'll bring up in this window here, and I'm going to go to my folder, navigate to my folder here, Death Scene, and I'm going to grab my video, and I'm holding down the Apple key or the Control key on a PC, and I'm going to Control click on those folders there. I want to bring in my video folder for my RED footage, my DSLR footage, and my audio. Hit import. It'll bring in every single one of these folders and organize it as I did as I imported it. Down here you'll notice really quick it was building audio PEK files, which are basically building the visual waveforms for the audio files. And you'll see that process. If you have a lot of media, you'll see that processing for a little while. But now you open up these and you'll notice there's a folder inside of here that brought in the 5D footage, because this was a file folder structure. You go to the video window here. See, and this is kind of weird the way this brought this in with the RED footage. I shouldn't have brought the RED footage in through this manner. I'm going to show you a couple other ways of importing. Of course, I'm going to delete this footage here and do another way. Command-I is basically the same, or Control-I is basically the same as just double-clicking in this area. And it brings open this browser window. Another way I like is just to go to your Finder or your Explorer in Windows, click on that, navigate through, and just kind of pull the window to the side here. Go through and find the folders that you want. There's my DSLR, there's my audio. I'm going to grab and drop those right in to my area here. Sometimes it will bring up an error message like this because there are files that it doesn't understand within all that metadata. The media browser will usually go around that. But if you import it like this, about 99% of the time you can just ignore this. Just hit OK, and it brings in the footage. But you can ignore pretty much all those error messages. Just hit OK and move on, and you'll see the footage that it does understand it will import. Red footage. If you go to media browser, you're going to navigate to that file here. Whatever you do, don't import footage from a flash drive directly into Premiere, because it's still going to be referencing that media off of the flash drive. Once you pull that flash drive out, your media is going to be disconnected. And I'm going to show you some disconnected files here in a little bit and show you what that means. But it has no media to reference because that drive is now gone. So you need to transfer it over to a drive that is constantly hooked to the computer. Okay, so let's go to my Death of Me scenes. I'm going to select my video card here, and notice it doesn't bring up all those weird folders here. If you look inside the video folders, all those weird red folders, it just brings up the media as individual clips. You can highlight the clips that you want. You can hold down Command and select individual clips. You can do a hold down Shift and select a range of clips in between, or you can just drag a marquee over all the clips, or just hit Command A and it selects everything, or Control A. Once you get the files selected that you want, they're highlighted. You right click and say import, and it will import those from the media browser directly into your project. There they are. Now before we get into organization, let me show you a couple issues with disconnected files. Sometimes, and this is something you never do, don't ever go into a folder and rename movie files. Don't go in and go, oh, this is like from my one shoot, I'm going to name this. Actually, what I'm going to do here, just so you see what happens when this gets disconnected, I'm going to rename this file. Don't ever do this. You can rename them in Premiere. Leave these file names alone. That's pretty much standard knowledge. But I'm going to change this one. I'm going to copy the name first because I want to, actually what I ought to do is duplicate this. I'm going to duplicate my file here. I'm going to grab my file is a little confusing. I'm just going to move that. I'm going to take it to my desktop just to save that file, because I'm going to show you what happens when you rename files. I'm going to rename just this file. I'm going to say this is when Ted was present. Ted shot this. I'm going to call it Ted 1. I just screwed things up. And it's not going to, if you've done some editing especially, this is going to be a major disaster if you decide to change file names later on. You can change them in Premiere. Do not change the original file names. Pretty common sense. All of a sudden this thing in Premiere comes up. It says, hey, I'm missing a file. It no longer knows where this file is because I just renamed it. I just screwed things up. I'm going to go into my DSLR folder here, open that up, and you'll see all the other media that I haven't renamed. Still there, but then this file, it's like, hey, where's this file? If you're going to reconnect that, if you close the program and open it up and it brings up a window at the beginning saying, hey, where's your media? This is the way you're going to do it. You're going to right click on one of these files, or actually on all the files that are disconnected. I only have one that's disconnected right now, but you're going to right click and do Link Media. You'll bring up, open this window. And there's some things down here that you need to know, like right here. Use Media Browser to locate files. It'll use, if you hit locate, it'll bring up in the media Browser in Premiere to locate it, or you can uncheck that if you don't like that Media Browser, and it will use a standard browser window from Mac or PC. I like the standard browser, so I tend to uncheck this. But it's got, if there's other footage that's missing, if you have this check marked, it'll try to find the other footage as well within the relative folder structure. And it usually does a pretty good job of relinking other media files. I'll show you an example of that here in a minute. But I'm going to hit locate, and I will have to navigate to that one that I changed, and I'm going to have to reattach it to the one with the new name. But I'm not going to do that because I'm just going to reattach it to the original name because I saved it. But you will have to know what every file belongs to with this reference number right here, and that's almost impossible. If you've done some editing, you will have pretty much lost all your editing. So I'm going to change that back. I'm going to reattach that there, find that media file, browse to it. There you go. Okay, I'm going to show you one other thing here as far as reattaching media goes. I'm going to go in and move a folder, which is also a no-no. Usually you got to get that organization down beforehand, or if you change computers and for some reason it can't, from like a Mac to a PC, and it cannot find the footage, then it will. We go from a Mac to a PC, and the way it names drives is a little bit different with a letter assigning that happens in Windows. You'll probably have to link the footage at least once, and you just find one file and it will reattach everything. But I'm going to change a file name here to card2. Go back into Premiere, and you'll notice it's trying to locate media. And actually what Premiere did with the later versions, it's a little smarter. It found it within the relative folder structure, knew where to find it. It did a search for it, and it found it automatically. I'm going to do one other thing here. I'm going to change that back to DSLR 1, and I'm actually going to move that to a different location. I'm going to put it just right here in my drive structure. And now I'm going to go back in, and it can't find them. So if you open up Premiere, and it has this sort of look here, let's open up this folder, and you've got these question marks. What it's doing is it is having trouble finding the media. It doesn't know where the media is because it's been moved. It's a bad idea to be moving things after you've been editing because it's going to be detached from the project. So it has these files still in here, but it's saying, hey, where is the media? So you're going to have to highlight all these, right-click, and go to Link Media. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell it to find just one of these here. I'm going to say find this one right here. I'm going to go down to locate, and I'm going to find that location. You can actually, if you're on a Mac or a PC, you can search the drive. You can just go to your hard drive, and you can type in this number and search for it. Or if you know where it's at, you can just navigate to it. But you can just go and navigate to those folders, find the media, and 733, there it is right there. You select one, you hit open. And with this check mark, relink others automatically, it will relink everything. And there it goes. But I'm going to go back to where I was before, move my folder back, and we'll go from there. So everything was way before. Just keep in mind, do not change file names. Do not change folder names, especially after you've started editing. Create your folder names, keep that the same, import the footage, then leave it the same, and don't go back to your files and touch them anymore while you're editing, because it will destroy your edit. So I'm going to close this, and I'm going to put things back to normal, then I'll be back. Okay, let's show you folder organization now. What I've got here is I'm going to go to my Death of Me project. I'm going to close these other bin windows here. And start off with just my project folder here. I'm going to open this up. Oops, escape. I'm going to open this up. Now, if you want to rename files here in Premiere, you can do that. And actually, before we start, actually, we'll do that in a minute. We'll go to file naming after we do folder structure here. Okay, so we've got kind of a mess here. We've got an audio folder that's got a bunch of audio files in it. We've got a DSLR that's got another folder within a folder, and then we've got the red footage here. So I'm going to start organizing. What I'm going to organize is I'm going to go down here to this little new item, or actually this new bin icon right here, and click, and it will create a new folder for me. Now, if I want to do a shortcut, Command or Control / the slash next to your right shift key, the / will create a folder for you. That's a shortcut. Another way of doing it is, let me undo, is grabbing a whole bunch of files. Oops, I duplicated there. Grab a whole bunch of files, and grab those files and drag them down to the new folder icon, and it will put all those items inside of a folder for you. So a few different ways there of creating new folders. But I'm just going to create a new folder here. I'm going to call this red footage. You might want to name the scene number as well if you're trying to organize a big movie, something like that. But I'm going to grab all these files here. I'm going to grab all my red footage and drag and drop it into my red footage folder. Double click on that, and there is my red footage right there. Now, my project window, I usually like to do this in a list view. You have these two views down here. You've got list view and you got icon view. I'm going to click on list view and it will show it like this, where you can arrow down and see in each folder. I kind of like this for the project viewer. But then when you open up these individual folders, I like to see those in icon view. So you can double click on that, open it up. If it's not in icon view, you can do list view or icon view. I kind of like the clip folders in icon view and the project folder or the project area in list view. Your choice, however you like it. That's how I like it. Now within my window here, you also have this little size slider right here. You can grab this and move it to the right or to the left, and it will increase the size of your thumbnails. Make these size bigger if you want. And then another little thing here with video footage, as you hover over these with your mouse and you move them from left to right, I'm not clicking, I'm just moving my mouse to the right here, it'll skim through the clip here and show you what's on that clip. So if you want to see what's on a clip, you can just quickly move over this and kind of skim through them really quick, like such. Back and forth. Also, you can kind of use this as a mini editor. I don't really use this all that much. I like using the source monitor, but I'm going to click on this and it brings up this little timeline right here, this little playhead that you can kind of drag through the footage and look. And you can also hit I and O for in and out point, in, and it adds an in point right there, and O for out point. I kind of don't like that. I like the source monitor. We'll talk about that later, but it's just I and O for in and out. I'm going to undo that. Control Z, Command Z 2 times. All right, let's do some more organization here. So I've got my red footage in this folder. Arrow down my DSLR and you'll notice I've got another folder within this. It's redundant. I don't need that. So I'm going to grab my footage here, drag a marquee over it. If you grab it and drag it to the left, it will drag it out of the folder and release it from the folder. Now it's in my project area, but I'm going to arrow this folder down, delete this folder, grab this footage, and drag it back into my DSLR card number 1. There you go. Okay, another thing here to know is when you open a folder, you can double click on it and it opens it in this free floating window. When you're editing, this can be kind of a pain. So I'm going to tilde here and go back down to normal. If you double click on this and you're trying to view other windows, you'll find yourself moving this to get it out of the way or closing it, then reopening it. So an easier way to do that, in my opinion, is to hold down Option and double click on a folder. Instead of just double clicking, this is double clicking, it opens up this free floating window. I'm going to close that. If you hold down Option, double click, it'll open it up in a tabbed window here. Now I can hit tilde, and here's my tabbed window here that's not getting in the way of everything else. So kind of nice and clean. If I want to open up my other folders, same way, Option, double click, or Alt, double click on a window on Windows. Option, double click, and there you go. I've got, let's show you, tilde, these 3 tabs here. Now I can increase the thumbnail of this, my audio. There we go. And I'm all set, ready to start editing. Well, one more thing I'm going to show, the last part of this video I'm going to show is renaming files. Okay, I'm going to go into my red footage here, and I'm going to skim to the very beginning. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger here, because these I'm going to be naming them after slate numbers. If you want to name them after slate numbers, I'm going to get to the beginning of the clip here. The very beginning. Let's find the slate. There it is right there. Now this slate is really small and it's kind of tough to see. Whoever was ACing should have had that a lot closer to the camera, but since it's not, I need to see that. So I'm going to just double click on it. If you double click on something, it will load it into the source monitor. Anything you double click on will load it into the source monitor. Let me make these thumbnails smaller. So I'm going to go into this window right here, and I'm going to go to the beginning, and I'm going to look at my slate number here. This is scene number 17, take 2. So I'm going to name the clip after that. So I'm going to click on the clip, and the way you rename is you just basically hit return. Hit return, and it will highlight the clip and ready to name it. So I'm going to type this in, scene 17, take 2. I'm going to type that in, and I'm going to do a little trick here to kind of speed things up. I'm going to highlight this whole thing here, and I'm going to hit Command C or Control C on a PC to copy. Just copied the name right there. I'm going to go to the next clip. And I'm going to double click on it. It'll load up into the viewfinder here, or into the source monitor. I'm going to look at the slate. It is scene 17, take 3. So this is a new take here. So I'm going to select this clip, and all you have to do to rename is press return. And I'm going to do Command V as in Victor to paste. And it pastes that old name in there, but this is 3, so I'll update it to 3. So I've renamed these clips here. And if you right click on one of these and say Reveal in Finder or Reveal in Explorer if you're on a Windows, it will bring open an Explorer window. It'll show you the original file that it is referencing. There's the original file right there. There's this red media file that has its own name that was named before. But notice this clip is now renamed and is still referencing this clip here, which it has not renamed the original clip. It leaves it alone and just references it. So it will not rename the original clip. It will leave it the same. But in the metadata of this clip in Premiere, it knows this clip, scene 17, take 2, is referencing this media and will always be connected to it. All right. We're going to the DSLR footage here, and we're going to rename some of these. Once again, all you have to do is select it, and I'm going to hit return and name this. I'll just call this wide shot backyard 01, because there's a couple of these here. Hit return, and when you hit return, it'll go to the next one and highlight it ready to go. So you can call this close-up tree. Hit return, it goes to the next one. There's another wide shot backyard 02. Return. This is the rail, and this is lawn, I guess. Very exciting footage here. But once again, if you right click on a clip and say reveal in Finder, it'll bring this up and it will reveal the file that it's referencing. Even though this has been renamed, it's just renamed in Premiere, and it's referencing the original media name within the metadata in Premiere. And that's basically it for organizing and renaming clips. You can see things. One kind of big mistake that people do is they will put all their footage in here, and they just have this huge list of just a bunch of different file types and everything in here, and it's so disorganized and difficult to find anything. And now if you're looking for a certain, one last little bit here, if you're looking for a certain clip and you've renamed everything, you can just click in this little search engine right here, and you can type in scene, and it will bring up all the files with the name scene in it, scene 17, and it will narrow it down to scene 17. There's scene 17. If we type in wide shot, it'll bring up the ones that are named wide shot backyard. If you type in tree, it'll narrow it down to just the tree. What you got to remember though is when you're done, is you'll suddenly start trying to find your footage and it's not there anymore. You got to remember, oh, this is in search mode, so you got to hit X to clear this, and it will clear it and bring everything back. But if you're trying to find some media quickly, just type it in and it will find the footage. There's a close-up tree, just double click on it and it loads it into the viewfinder there. So there we go. Okay, one more little thing here to cover is this area right up here. This is, and I did tilde to make this full screen here, and you'll notice if you arrow down and look at the footage with these columns that are over here, these show attributes to the media that you're working with. So you can see things like frame rate, time code, begin and end depending on how the camera was set up. If it recorded some sort of arbitrary time code, or record and run time code, or some sort of different time code. This is a time code unique to this clip. And then you got in point and out point if you've done edits on it, how long the clip is, the resolution, the settings for your audio, a whole bunch of different information up here. If you want to display more information, you can right click up here and go to the Metadata Display. It'll open this up and you can tell it to display or not display certain items here. And this has a boatload of items to show. that you can add onto it. A lot of this stuff is stuff that will be used by an assistant editor on kind of a full-scale production. But you can go in here and add a whole bunch of different items. You can go in and click on these items and it will show things like scene setting, time of day, action. You can click, check mark these, and once you check mark those, they will show up here in the settings, and you'll see those items added up here, and you can go down and select and add these items in here. Adds a whole bunch of different, a lot of these things aren't used, like I said, unless it's on a larger scale production oftentimes. With all these details for each individual clip. If you're looking for something, you can search for them here, and you can find it in the metadata as well as in the regular name as well. So anyway, so those are kind of the basics of the metadata display. And on to the next section.